not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. So thrilled to be here with you. And just want to share that with all the things that are happening, just want to send our prayers out and send our love all around. So folks, for those of you who have supported us by getting our books to help entrepreneurs impacted by challenges, we really appreciate you, especially the books, The Entrepreneur's Garden and Expert to Influencer. And now more than ever, I encourage you, I invite you, and I strongly urge you to be kind to each other and show up for each other, be there for each other, because the planet is going through tough times right now. So I invite you to do that. Take a moment, be kind to someone else, whether it is 1 hour of your time in a month, or if it's a single smile a day. So I'll bring our guest on today, Sheena Cantar. Welcome, Sheena.
Hello, Divya.
So Sheena, we usually start out from a question about your childhood. Do you have any memories that stand out for you today, or is there someone who left you a mark on your life when you were young?
Oh my goodness. I guess that would have to be my mum. And you know, whenever I think about that, about 12 years ago when I started my personal development journey, and I was told that if you heal the relationship with your mum, then you will find peace with yourself. And I didn't believe that. In one instant, I thought, no, there's no point in healing this. You know, she is who she is. I mean, you know, absolutely 100% love my mum. She did her best, and everybody does their best. But at that time, I just didn't get on with her. And she was a very strict disciplinarian and great Catholic mum from Northern Ireland. And she brought us up that way. And I remember one time even saying to me, I don't care how you grow up as long as you grow up good. And I don't care if you hate me when you grow up. And I remember thinking, my goodness, why would you even say that? And to be honest, you know, for children wise, we weren't the best children, to be honest. And she did her best job. But when she passed away last year, it was about a year before she passed that I actually had the best time with her. I healed that relationship and I found peace. And it was just what you were saying there, Divya, about the world and everything and everything that goes on in it. And one things that if we can have peace in ourselves, no matter what is going on, then we can help bring that peace to other people. And that was the thing that before my mum passed away, I actually had peace with my mum, and I saw that she had peace in her then. So yes, that's a great question. Thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for sharing. So you shared that your mom wanted you to be good. And how did she describe that to you?
She would just shout instructions. I mean, there's one story that comes up in my mind actually, and it's about we call it the 50p story. And what it was is that my auntie gave me 50p, and I thought, oh, I was about 8 years old, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is awesome. And my mum comes straight in and takes it off me and said, you've had enough today, and took it right off me. And I remember sitting there, and then when she went round the corner, I cried, and my auntie saw me, and then my mum saw me. So she shouted at me for crying and for being so selfish. And so it was, I guess, just, mum had her ways of that, enough is enough. If you've had too much fun, you had to get back to work. I mean, you couldn't over fun it, and you couldn't over money it in anything in life. It was her way, or, well, it was just her way. It was her way or no way. And you had to do what she said. But that's how she was brought up as well. And so that story, that's actually the financial story about myself, where at that moment, that program was installed, that program of guilt and shame about having money. So money would come into my hands, and I would have to get rid of it as soon as possible so that nobody else took it. And then I would feel guilt and shame for having it, and guilt and shame for not having it. And so you can see how even as children, how we can be programmed so easily from somebody wanting to do good. That's what I understood from it all, is that my mum just wanted us to be good, and that was it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when children have to grow up with that. And here's the thing, that it's a journey. And rather than staying in the past, as you said, that if you heal your relationships and if you bring harmony and peace to those relationships, then it allows you're basically creating that room and space for yourself to move on. So as you continued your growth, and as you continue to grow, like, did you have siblings? How were your relationships with them? Did you get into any trouble?
Oh, well, we just have to laugh at that now, don't we? Yes, I have two brothers, and actually one brother just passed away a couple of weeks ago. So, at the ripe old age, would you believe, of 57, that's no age for anybody to die. And what I see is
sorry
that
for your loss.
Yeah, thank you. He was filled with worry. He was just worry, worry, worry. And that's what, and that made him smaller and smaller and smaller. And so, I see my other brother who's not doing the best either at the moment, and he's only 55. And I feel like I'm the one at 52 who has to just go and to change this cycle of worry that we get ourselves into. My mum would I would say, worried herself to death as well. I mean, she did get to 78, but she had multiple sclerosis. And so that's when your nerve endings are literally fried away. And so anybody who's out there who's worrying and worrying and worrying about things, it doesn't solve a thing. It just closes you down. It literally just holds you in place. And then, well, it doesn't actually help anything, does it? And when we can learn to find that peace, so that is one of my biggest things before, when people say, well, I can't get results, and I can feel the anxiety that's inside them. And that's the first thing that I want to help bring to people, is literally that peace inside. Because when we have peace, we have clarity. When we have clarity, we have order. And order is heaven's first law. So we can start to see the opportunities that are out there. And that is something that I'm absolutely driven to help change and bring that peace to people, one person at a time, one thought at a time.
Yeah, it's one tiny action can cause ripple effects, because so many people forget that, oh gosh, I have to change completely. I have to change this. And it's so surprising that when you change one aspect of your life, it has a ripple effect in all aspects of your lives. So as we continue your journey, what was it that you desired in your teenage years? Where did that take you in your early years?
Well, I remember saying to my mum that I wanted to be a vet, and she just laughed and she said, like, our Sheena could be a vet. She hasn't got the academic capability. And so I didn't have anything to live up to. And so instead of going on to do university, she put me in to be a medical secretary. But I remember even passing the exams then and thinking, oh my goodness, nobody else is going to look after me if I don't pass these exams. I need to pass these exams. I need to get a job. I need to find my own money, because nobody else is going to look after me. But very soon, as soon as I get into that job, Divya, I realized I don't like this job. what am I doing this for? So I started to do other qualifications, and guess what? I would pass them because there was no pressure, because there was no expectation. I literally would pass them. And so I got a degree then in computer science, of all things. I was the only female to do it at that time. I went down and studied masters in Reiki, coaching, NLP, hypnotherapy. And it was like that no matter what you're told when you're young, you're not that young person anymore. You can choose to have whatever it is that you want to have. And that's what taught me that I could have whatever qualification I wanted. But what I realized is that qualifications get you a job, but they don't bring you wealth.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. When you talk about job and wealth, and there's so many different things. So did you continue in your job or did you leave it? What happened next?
I got to about 40, I think it was about 44. And I actually became number one in a health economic role, would you believe me, as advising to the National Health Service in the UK. And considering I was no good at maths when I was 16, so that just always makes me laugh. And when I got to then, and I realized that you could be who you wanted to be, and had done my strengths. I actually had been, Gallup strengths had been done to me. And I realized that it was okay to be me, for the first time at the age of 44, that it was okay to be me and to stop criticizing myself. I went to number one in the team, top 10% of the company globally. So I left and I decided to start my own business and teach other people that it was okay to be them.
Absolutely. So let's kind of go back to when you talked about you can be anybody you want, and you have referred to you not being good a couple of times. It doesn't matter what you were, as you mentioned. So when you were in the health industry and you said that you were one of the first ones. So a couple of things. You were the only one of the only women in computer science. How did that feel? What did it feel like sitting in that classroom with all guys around?
It felt really good. But I realized that this wasn't for me, but I'd set myself on a journey that had to be finished. It was the
Mhm.
programming side of things, Divya. I would have to sit there and put all my focus into programming. And then what I noticed is that I was so distracted. It would take literally an hour before I could get into the program. And I noticed that men were able to focus on one thing at a time. And at that time I was, I was 33 when I got my degree. So I had two children at the time, and my partner was away for a 3-month period, and my father died at that time as well. So it was all going on. And so to concentrate was just like, but when it came to me standing on the stage and getting my certificates, it felt like, yes, I did that. It's okay to be a girl. I think with having two brothers, I grew up that it was not so good to be a girl. They would, if I did anything girly, then it was like the really bad thing to do. So it felt really good to be the only girl on the stage.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations for all these achievements. And there are a lot of women in the corporate world, especially in the sales area and the advisory area. Of course, now the market and the whole demographics is changing as far as the corporate makeup is concerned. So while you were there, can you share what challenges you faced and how did you overcome that?
I think one of the things is that I was trying to be what everybody wanted me to be, instead of being myself. So the first manager that I had for about 5 years, he constantly criticized. I mean, I knew that he was doing it for my good. He wanted me to be better. And I would get all the KPIs, so all the key performance indicators, I would tick every box, but I didn't seem to have the sales. But you know what that was, Divya, is that I never felt like a salesperson. How funny that I was actually in sales and I didn't feel like a salesperson. It must have taken me about 10 years before I thought, oh, I'm selling something. And so I think that was the first point there. But then what happened was I had a manager who focused on what I was good at. And for the first conversation, he sat there and he told me all the things that I was good at. And I remember being so embarrassed and like, I think you're talking about somebody else. That's not me. And he said, I have seen you. I have watched you. And that turned everything around for me. That's when I decided that I could actually go for a position that was higher than what I was in, whereas I had no thought of that before.
So it's amazing how one person can create this havoc with you. Yes, he was criticizing you for your own good. The key is how it is delivered, how it is relayed. And then at the same token, when you look at the other side of the coin, another manager, when he said, no, check yourself out in the mirror. You're doing so good, Sheena. And that changed the trajectory. So what happened after that?
Well, I went for a position that I wasn't seen to be the type of person in that position. It was very much for men. But I knew I could do the job really well, and I didn't know what other job to go for, and it was a clinical effectiveness consultant, again, in a economic role towards the NHS, and I decided it was my role, and so I did assessment centre after assessment centre after assessment centre, and I would come top of every assessment centre, but they wouldn't give me the job. I would fail at interview, and so I wasn't seen to be a leader. And so they had a definition of what a leader was and what a leader looked like, and I didn't fit the bill. And one day, this gorgeous woman came into the role, and she came in for a short time, and she interviewed me, and she gave me the role. And then literally, it was about 2 months later, she left the role. I really believe the universe brought her in to just go, oh, for goodness sake, give her the job. She's been, attending every assessment centre. She's getting top score. And so I just didn't give up. I didn't think that it was, I just wasn't exactly sure what they were looking for, but I knew I could do the job. And I knew if I kept persisting that I would get that job. And so I made up my mind. I would go to every assessment centre until they give me the job. And that's exactly what happened.
You didn't give up.
I didn't give up.
You didn't give up. And as you mentioned, that universe send this beautiful angel to help you out.
Yeah.
And that's powerful that you didn't give up, because think about it. A lot of times people ask questions. What if I fail? What if I don't get the job? So you, instead of thinking that, you said, okay, what if I could get from the next assessments? You kept on going from one to another, and you found the job. And when you were in the job, what did you face any difficulties, and what was your journey to success to being number one?
It was funny again, because they had an idea of what a leader should be, and in that company and in corporate leaders, they seem to be that if you're talking a lot, you're clearly a leader. But that wasn't a leader. That wasn't a leader in my book. I mean, all I saw was egos wanting to be heard, and so I would just do my work. And because I wasn't seen to be a leader, I was actually marked down, even though my sales were the top. I was actually marked down for not showing leadership skills. And so I spoke to the manager at the time, and I said, what can I do? And he said, well, do one thing and do it really well. So I did. And what's the only thing that you can do really well is be yourself. So I had my strengths done. That's when I found out who Sheena Cantar was. And I literally just was myself, and I went out and I delivered results that nobody else had delivered, and then helped the team get to number one. And so that was literally coming just by me and not listening to them. I think what I did was I paid too much attention to what they were saying. So I was tweaking myself in a way that wasn't my strength. I was trying to be more strategic. I was trying to talk more, when all I wanted to do was, I knew what to do. I just took the action and I would get the results. And when I did that, I got the results, and they couldn't do anything after that. Literally, our team just sailed completely through, and we became number one. And so, yeah, that was awesome. And at that time as well, Divya, then I was made redundant.
Well, you proved them wrong. And that, that just because somebody speaks a lot, that's not a leader. And of course, times have changed so much that I feel blessed that we are living in times where people are opening up to different types of leadership. More compassion and empathy is making way into our society. So You did mention that after your job, you decided to leave. So share with us, what was that turning point that made you pivot?
Well, with the redundancy, because of the product, I was in the pharmaceutical industry and the product had gone off patent. And so they did offer me something else. But when you feel like crying when you heard what they'd offered you, then I was like, thank you very much. I'd rather leave. So I took the redundancy and I was excited because I had the money now to retrain myself. And so I took myself down that retraining route of, I'd already started the journey of personal development, understanding about quantum physics and the science behind who we were. And now here I was given the opportunity to retrain as a Gallup certified strengths coach and, Reiki and NLP and hypnotherapy and coaching. And I just spent the year doing qualification after qualification while teaching people, while working with corporate teams and teaching the teams the strengths. And what was great was every team that I did the strengths work with, they all went to number one. And I think that was because I had the experience of that and I had the belief. And when they saw who they were, it was like a freedom it was like I was giving them freedom, and they didn't know what was apparently wrong with them. Why would they be frustrated? Why would they be lacking in confidence? And when we do our strengths, you understand if you overplay or underplay them, that you then, it doesn't feel good being you. But when you can find your balance, you find your peace. Like, as I said before, then that gives you clarity and then that gives you order. And that is what brings peace to our mind. So yeah, every team went to number one. It was incredible. I loved it.
Mm, that's so powerful. And I really like when you talk about the Gallup strengths. That's one of the assessments I love. It is such a beautiful assessment, and it's a small book. And folks, if you are looking to take that assessment, you can get the book. Would you like to share with our listeners how they could go and get that strengths assessment?
Well, what they can do is they can literally just book a call with me. I would love to know. It's not about just doing the strengths assessment. It's about having that conversation after you do
Mhm.
it. That is the most important, because what we see on paper is 2D version of ourselves. And what we want is the 3D version and the 4D version. So when we have a conversation about that, we literally talk about your life, about different things that you've achieved. And when I hear you talk, I hear your strengths, but you're just telling me a story. So if anybody who was Gallup trained were to hear me now, they would hear my strengths through everything that I have spoken. And so that's what I just ask people to do. I ask them to tell me stories. Tell me about this time, just like you're doing with me. And out of that, I can literally pull out all their strengths and I can show them, do you see how you've lived your strengths now? Now let's live them going forward. So yes, by booking a call with me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And there may be some folks who are thinking that, okay, I just want to read a book, and that's fine too, folks. Is depending on as you move in your level of comfort. So there's a Strengths Finder book, and you can find it on Amazon. And as Sheena said, you can connect with her. So here's the thing, share with us when you talked about that people, when they know their strengths and they're themselves, what other, if you were to just kind of break it down to 2 to 3 qualities that helped your teams that you were working with get to number one, what were they?
Well, when you know yourself, you know you know what gives you energy, you know what gives you strength. But what we tend to do is we try to find development areas. Oh, well, I need to do this to develop. And I ask people, well, how do you feel like when you go to do that? And they would say, well, it drains me. And I says, well, that's not where you want to be. There's other people who find that work really, really good. So I can do the computer work. I can do all the data analysis. But if you leave me behind a computer all day, Divya, then I am literally drained of energy. My strengths are all about relationships and people and talking, yet I'm very good at the computer side. So I would be thinking that I needed to develop the computer side to be even better than that. But what I would do to myself would be drain my energy. So when you know your strengths, you know what you want to do. Then when we put you in a team, and we say, well, we want to achieve this project, we want to achieve this end goal, then everybody starts to work together. So we had a team one time where we had 10 achievers, and they were all head to head with each other because they all wanted to achieve. But when we realized that they were achieving in different directions, because it's a 1 in 33 million chance that somebody has the same top 5 as you in the same order. So everybody wants to achieve different things in different ways. And when you put them into a project, they all started to work together. Well, you do that, and you do that, and I'll do this. But it all leads to the same end result. And that's how the teams work together. And it cuts away a lot of noise, or who should do, or people who are lacking in energy doing jobs because they have to do them. Never give somebody a job because they have to do it. You want to give somebody a job that has energy. They will stay up all night to do that. But I find with strengths, Divya, that it only lasted so long, and that what we needed to change was people's consciousness about who they were. So this was just a paradigm shift, that it was a temporary paradigm shift, but we needed to go deeper. And so that's when I started to work with the leaders. So the teams would have the strengths, but the leaders would have thinking into results. And that's a program for leaders. And that's where, when I work with them for 3 to 6 months, really understanding who you are at a deep, deep rooted level. And do you want to be that person? Or are you acting like that person because you've been programmed? So just as I said before about, the money paradigm, the money programming that I had with my 50p, that was driving my life. And so I would have results, then no results, have results, then no results. It was as if I was leveling myself out. Every time I got to double my salary, then the next year I would lose most of it, because I would literally balance out at a certain number. It's like a cybernetic instrument, like a temperature control. It was also the same, Divya, for fun. I knew that if I had too much fun, that I wouldn't have fun the next week. I knew that I was doing this to myself, but I didn't know how to get out of it. And that's what people tend to do with themselves. So strength takes you so far, but if you really want to understand yourself, it's great for your team, but as a leader, you want to be going deeper. You want to be going deeper.
So now when you talk about going deeper, and I completely agree with you, is that strengths can go only so far. It's about that internal energy. It's having that mind shift, because that's where the burnout comes in. That you could be so excellent at what you're doing, you keep on doing it, and you are climbing that ladder. And actually, recently, one of my clients mentioned about how she is on track to becoming a VP, and yet she's not excited about it. She's like, I don't know. Everything is set. I know that my promotion is going to go into effect in next 3 months. And yet what's going to happen is that I'm going to be continuing to do more of the same, and it doesn't bring any excitement or joy. And as we worked through it, she realized that she'd rather move to a payroll job with the same title, but where she can employ her creativity. Because just now she's used to delegating, being strategic, but she's finding that gap and that space where she just feels unfulfilled. That I'm not doing anything creative, I'm losing my touch. So as we worked together, she came to the conclusion that she would sit and negotiate, where she was bringing all her expertise. And fortunately for her, along with her strategy and her dedication, not only she got the raise, the compensation that she was going to get when she was going to get promoted to VP, they created a career plan for her, so that if she showed up, even in the new job, and if she had achieved certain milestones, she would be on track to getting VP in next 8 months. So when you're open and when you're going deep, bringing that energy that you were talking about. So tell us more about how teams, leaders, or people can go into depth.
Sorry, say that again, Divya. How teams and leaders
can go more deeper. You talked
and
about
go
that
more
steps
deeper.
will only carry you so far.
Yeah. So when I work with teams, so I've been working with a team this week, and there's 24 senior leaders. And when you do strengths, you start to see the underlying paradigm of the company, because there's a theme that literally goes through. And so every team that I work with, I will literally pull out things, extra things that I can see that if they just tweak them, that they could actually change everything in their company. And so whenever we have our day's event, after everybody has a one-to-one call, and then we spend the day together, and I bring out articles such as even decision making. We think that is something that, well, of course I make decisions, but how do you make decisions? Sometimes our decisions are so caught up with the past and worried about the future that the decision today isn't quite the right decision, because we're so worried about what could go wrong. And so even just to sit and talk about making decisions, like, it seems such a simple topic, but I say that when we look after the pennies, the pounds look after themselves. When we look after the small decisions, the big ones will look after themselves, but we can't even make small decisions quickly. We tend to go, well, I need to have all this information. And so when Kennedy was asked, what does it take to get a man to the moon? It was the will to do it. The decision was made. It was happening. End of story. And so it's talking about the simple things in life, things that we bypass. So on my personal development journey, I thought it was all about knowing quantum physics, knowing the science, knowing about holograms, knowing about how your mind worked to the cellular level, understanding the physiology. I mean, all of that I studied. And what I realized when it came back down to, Bob Proctor was the absolute greatest person to describe all this, to bring it down to the simplest things. And the first thing is the decision. And then we wonder why we don't get results, and we have a knowing doing gap. And decision is what is in there. We know what to do, but we're not getting the results that we want. Why is that? And there's a series of decisions that are missing in the middle. And that will be dependent upon our beliefs. Everybody makes decisions completely different, and that's praxis. So we'll have a belief in one hand, and we'll have a behavior that is displaying something else. And so we're being incongruent, but we can't see it because we're so used to being ourselves. And when we can start to see ourselves, we can start to clear the debris, clear the weeds from our mind, which again brings clarity, brings order, and brings that peace of mind, so you can make clear decisions. It's so important. Our beliefs, our programming, and everybody's got a different programming, haven't they, Divya? Depending on the culture, depending on the country, depending on the religion, depending on the company, everybody is being programmed, and we're all trying to work together. How do we do that?
Yes, absolutely. Decision, as you mentioned very aptly, that small decisions will drive big decisions. And when you talk about that, when you see yourself, that's when the clarity comes in. That is so true. I am definitely a fan of mindfulness as a mindfulness practitioner for so many years. The key is the awareness. It's not even, a lot of people think, I have to go climb mountains. I have to go snorkeling and scuba diving, and I gotta move the earth. And the beautiful thing is that we have been given the best tool in the world, that is breathing. We all breathe 24/7. And when we bring that attention, that focus into the present moment without any judgment, and just start seeing things. And as you start seeing things, you become aware of what you're doing. As you mentioned, becoming aware of your beliefs. And then, even today, I don't know about any of you folks, I still am continuing to learn and continuing to grow. And there will be days and I hear myself talk about something, and then I'll be, really? I said that? Then, of course, the key thing over here is bringing that non judgment and compassion to yourself. Okay, I did that. What is it that I can do to move beyond that? That's the key. So, okay, you talked about the decision. what would be the next step to move from those decisions and seeing those beliefs and getting past where people can get the results?
Well, it's about having a vision.
Mhm.
You know, what is it in the Bible? It says when the men haven't, when there's no vision, the man will perish. And there's times when I speak to people and I go, well, what's your vision? Where are you going? Well, I don't know. I'm just getting the next thing done. And I said, and isn't it any wonder then that we just keep going round and round in circles, because we're just trying to do the next thing instead of having a vision. So we've just set up a TV channel with my partner and myself, talking about relationships, because everything is about relationships. Every single thing. You said it before. Our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with people we live with, our relationship with things like with money. And so when we start to understand that, then that's where we can really start to change things. And actually, the first thing, Divya, is the relationship with ourselves. And who are you? That's one of the biggest questions to answer. And people tend to deep dive into that, and we go into our past. But what I learned is that you can just decide who you are. And when you do that, this is your self-image, this is your self-esteem. When you do that, you can choose to be whoever you want to be, but I guarantee you already are that person. So we go on this long, long journey of self-discovery to find out I was already here. It's so funny. I've spent 12 years searching for Sheena to find out she was already here. But now I see her. And I want to help other people see themselves as well. There's so much rubbish in the way, Divya, isn't there? So much just rubbish that gets in the way, that we're told that we're watching social media, or that somebody told us we weren't good at this. And so we've taken that on board as, well, that must be true because they said it. Rubbish. I realize that if I just decide that I'm good at something, then I can be good at it. Now, people may say, oh, well, I want to be good at singing, and clearly my voice isn't good at it. Well, there has to be a will, and there's a driving passion. There's something that's unique for you. And when you start to really sit with that and understand the energy, which is where strength starts that journey, where you understand, oh goodness, I feel good energy here, but I feel low energy here. When you start to listen to that inside yourself, then you can go, oh, well, this makes me feel good. Oh, I'll do more of that. This doesn't make me feel good. How can I either let go of that, have somebody else do that for me, or, how else can I manage that in my life? And we can start to find ourselves. I mean, that's one of the self-image. It's not about branding. It's not about what you wear. It's about how you feel about yourself.
Yeah. And Sheena, that was very powerful. You said that Sheena was already there. You just didn't see her. And it's that inner genius, potential, whatever we want to call that, Wonder Woman, Superman, Superwoman, whatever name you want to give, it's already there. It's just about seeing her, seeing him, and just letting them out. It's about having that relationship that you talked about. And Sheena, so many times what happens is that people do see themselves. They will, and this is something you mentioned as well, that you would reach a certain level, you would achieve goals, and then you would find that you plateaued out. So there are a lot of people, a lot of women seeing that they're plateauing out. What questions could they ask themselves to move beyond that?
It's the vision and the self-image. I mean, they are the two things. Is your vision big enough? And that's the first thing people say, well, that's a silly vision, that's being out of reality. But my experience of what Bob Proctor had taught me was to go into fantasy, because that was worthwhile getting out of bed for when things got rough. And you would say to yourself, well, I want that. And so you would work for it. And it had to be a fantasy. So the vision has to be big. It's like a magnet that draws you out. And then who is the person? And in a lot of Neville Goddard's work, when you read his books, he talks about the concept of you. And when we don't know who we are, it really is the concept of you that will drive results. Because if you do not see yourself as that VP, then you can never be that VP. And so that's with the girl you were talking about. Well, she knew she was already VP before she had the job. That's how you've got to be. There was a guy who walked to the South Pole, and it took him 15 years in the planning. I think 17,000 miles, and he was about 14 days away from the end, and he was already thinking about his burger. He wasn't thinking about crossing the line anymore, because he was already at the South Pole. He knew it was another 14 days and he was there. So you cannot have what you haven't already experienced. You've got to experience the wealth before you can have the wealth. And that is by denying reality. So in the Bible, doesn't it say that, be of this world, but not in it? Or no, be in this world, but not of it, said the right way around. And that's the thing, where we live in the essence of who you are, not in the senses of who you are. The senses are guiding you around so you don't bang into things. But that's all we want to use them for. We want to use the essence of who we are, that draws us to what we want. And that is the absolute key. Beyond anything, the concept of who you are. Because that word concept, when we say one word, it has so many different connotations. So if we say the word God, then there's 7 billion different ideas as to what that actually means, because it means something different to everybody. So who is Divya? Who is Sheena? What is the concept of yourself? That will bring the results to you. It will be done onto you. I just loved studying the science and theology and putting them both together. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you're a magnet. Your thoughts have a gravitational pull. And so if you're afraid that you won't get beyond where you are now, or you think that's your limit, then that's exactly what you get. It's exactly what you get.
That's beautiful. I love what you said about the living in the essence of who you are. And not sure where I was reading or something just past this week. It's just fascinating that we're discussing this topic. Was that, think about what has been constant in your life. I'm not talking about physical body, not talking about the physical sensations. You have been that constant in your life throughout. That essence has been constant. And if you stay with that essence and let it out, there can be magic and miracles that could be happening. So, Sheena, you have very generously shared your insights. So, let's say somebody is listening and they're like, I want to work with Sheena. What are her programs? So, can you share with us, and where can people reach you?
Yes, sure. So we can put the link in that's direct to my Calendly, and then you can have a conversation with me. And how I work with people is over a 6-month period. So if it's a one-to-one, so you're not part of a team, you're not part of a corporate firm, and you're an entrepreneur, then we can work with each other. And so we work with each other over a 6-month period. It is a group setting, and you do your own study work. So we have the absolute wonderful program from a man beyond the grave right at this moment in time, Bob Proctor. So we are living very much in his essence. His words will carry on forever. So I actually work with Bob Proctor's program, Thinking into Results. And that is a program that is taking everything that I've ever learned and put it into 12 modules. I keep trying, Divya, to find that, Bob didn't include this and Bob didn't include that. But every time I look back and I go, he said it in one sentence. He made it sound so simple that most of us don't pay attention to the simple things. And so that's what I do. But I also, as a free gift, I incorporate the strengths as well, because that is your first paradigm shift. This is not a program for learning. You already know this stuff if you're listening to me right now. This is about changing your paradigm. This is getting to the concept of who you are. And when you do that, you decide who you are. And that's what actually gets results. So people have results. You tell me, tell me what Bob's favorite saying was, tell me what you want and I'll show you how to get it. I didn't quite believe it, but I've seen it happen now. And so I've had people who couldn't get pregnant. They start studying this program, they get pregnant. I've had people with cancer recovery. I've had people who started to make $1 million a month. I've had people who took their annual salary and made it monthly. Or I've had people who get a car. It is. Whatever it is you want it to be, it's about happy, healthy, wealthy, and whatever that looks like for you. Some people just wanted their debts paid off. The great thing about this program is you have it for life, and you do it over and over. Every time you have a new idea, you repeat the process. So you now have a program for life. I couldn't think of anything better. And so not everybody gets on it. You have to have a conversation with me, and we'll decide whether it is the best thing for you and with the level where you are now. But if you're teams, if you're corporate, my goodness, you want your team to be going to number one, whatever it is. Bob Proctor used this work with Prudential, and they went from 163rd in their industry to number one. That's what excites me, when you start coming from yourself and what you're good at.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, Sheena. Thank you for sharing that. And listeners, know that we are here to serve you and support you. Anything that we can help you out with, you're very generous in reaching out and connecting with me. Continue doing so. Share what other stories, what other expertise, what other tools, strategies that we can bring for you so that you can achieve that you desire, because you deserve the life you dream of. So thank you, Sheena. And thank you, listeners. Really, really appreciate you. Without you, the show would not be possible. And thank you, Jason, for making it technically possible. And until next time, talk to you then.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.